Beloved, there is a law working in your life right now. Not the law of man, but the law of spirit. It is shaping your days, directing your outcomes, and framing your future. Not based on effort, but based on alignment. Right now, whether you realize it or not, you're either being planted or blown, either rooted like a tree beside living waters, or scattered like chaff in the wind. But today, that changes, because you're about to unlock the first psalm, the spiritual blueprint for a blessed, flourishing, unstoppable life. This isn't ancient poetry, it's activated principle. And if you apply it, it will transform your inner world, and your inner world will transform everything else. Spiritual separation is the beginning of elevation. There is a divine law that governs your rise. It is not arbitrary, and it is not emotional. It is universal, impartial, and always exact. That law is this: before you ascend, you must separate. Before you enter into the atmosphere of spiritual blessings, you must disconnect from the frequency of spiritual interference. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly. That is not a casual phrase. It is a blueprint, an opening instruction to the architecture of the blessed life. It does not begin with what to do. It begins with what to leave behind. The first step toward the blessed life is not addition, it is subtraction. You must come out from among the patterns that diminish you. You must no longer receive counsel from sources that do not know the language of spirit. For what you listen to, you become sensitive to. What you entertain, you eventually embrace. Spiritual separation is not judgment, it is alignment. When you refuse to walk in the counsel of the ungodly, you are not condemning people. You are choosing vibrations. You are saying, I no longer allow the fearful, the cynical, or the defeated to advise my journey. The ungodly may not be evil in appearance. They may seem moral, rational, even compassionate, but their counsel is rooted in limitation, not revelation. Their worldview begins with man and ends with fear, but your path begins with God and ends with overflow. The law of mental substitution governs this principle. Two things cannot occupy the same space in your mind at the same time. You cannot be filled with divine wisdom and worldly confusion simultaneously. You cannot affirm your abundance while entertaining lack-filled conversations. You cannot rise with eagles while you're still consulting with chickens. Spiritual separation is not always external. It is deeply internal. You may live in the midst of noise, but you can choose what enters the gates of your soul. You may hear the opinions of others, but you can decline their residence in your consciousness. You can sit among the noisy and yet remain still inside. That stillness is your elevation. The psalmist moves deeper, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. Notice the progression. Walk, stand, sit. The danger is gradual. First you walk by error, then you stand in agreement with it. Then you sit down and make yourself at home in it. That is the nature of spiritual decline. It is subtle, progressive, unconscious, but so is spiritual elevation, subtle, progressive, powerful. As you move away from the counsel of the ungodly, as you rise out of the grip of negative influence, you rise automatically into your divine inheritance. You cannot enter the sanctuary of clarity while you still dwell in the court of confusion. You cannot carry the baggage of old patterns into the temple of new identity. The law is clear. Come out, and I will receive you. Separate, and I will sanctify you. Spiritual separation is the wisdom to discern the difference between appearance and vibration. Someone may speak kindly, but carry a frequency of defeat. Someone may give you advice, but it is laced with unspoken wounds. The spiritually mature mind does not judge personalities. It reads frequencies. You can feel when a conversation is lifting you or lowering you. You can sense when a connection is expanding you or draining you. The blessed man, the blessed woman, feels this early and exits accordingly. The counsel of the ungodly is not always from without. It often rises from within. It's that internal voice of past limitation, the residue of old programming, the echoes of parental fears, or cultural expectation. Spiritual separation also means standing up to that inner narrative and saying that no longer applies to me. You must divorce from your old self-image before you can marry your divine identity. Elevation is not a mysterious event. It is the natural result of living in spiritual order. The higher you think, the higher you live. The cleaner your mental atmosphere, the clearer your spiritual perception. You begin to discern which thoughts are your divine compass, and which thoughts are counterfeit impulses sent to distract you. Do not fear the silence that follows separation. Sometimes, when you detach from lower counsel, there will be a holy loneliness. Do not run back to the familiar just because it is loud. That still space is where divine wisdom begins to whisper. But space is where the law starts to work. Many are praying for elevation while still feeding on confusion. Many ask for the blessings of heaven while entertaining the beliefs of earth. You cannot mix oil and water. You cannot mix divine clarity with worldly clutter. The spiritual path demands decision. The law of life says, let the tares grow with the wheat. But in the time of harvest, separate. The counsel of the ungodly is like a shadow. It follows you, lingers, mimics your movement. But you must remember, a shadow has no substance. When light appears, the shadow vanishes. Your light is the word. Your light is divine law. When you meditate on truth, falsehood retreats. When you declare, I only accept divine ideas, the suggestions of fear lose their grip. Spiritual separation is the beginning of spiritual clarity, and clarity is the soil of blessing. When the fog lifts, the path appears. When the noise stops, the music begins. When the world's voice fades, the divine voice speaks. And when you hear that voice, truly hear it, everything changes. Not because the world around you shifted, but because your consciousness did. Guard your mind. Reject the counsel of the fearful. Your mind is your holy ground. Your subconscious is not a junkyard. It is a fertile garden. And like any good gardener, you must guard its gates. For every thought that enters becomes a seed, and every seed, whether of fear or faith, eventually bears fruit. To guard your mind is not a passive act. It is spiritual vigilance. It is daily discernment. You would not allow a thief into your home and then complain that something was stolen. Yet many allow the thief of fear to enter through conversations, media, and self-talk, and then wonder why peace has vanished. The counsel of the fearful is all around you. It is in the news headlines, the office gossip, the well-meaning relatives. It sounds cautious, even wise, but its roots are soaked in lack and limitation. Fearful counsel never sees with spiritual eyes. It only sees what is missing, what is wrong, what might go wrong. And when you internalize that narrative, you shrink your divine potential into a box labeled realistic. But you were not made for realistic. You were made for miraculous. When someone gives you counsel, they are offering you their consciousness. They are saying, Here is how I see the world. Take it and make it your own. And if you accept it, your subconscious says, so be it. Whether the belief is empowering or disempowering, your mind will attempt to make it real. Your inner world is shaped by repeated suggestion. The subconscious does not filter, it accepts. And what it accepts, it outpictures. If you are constantly advised by those who walk by sight and not by faith, then your life becomes a mirror of their fears, not a canvas of your faith. Rejecting the counsel of the fearful is not arrogance. It is alignment. You are aligning with truth, not noise. You are listening to the whisper of God, not the shouts of panic. It means you know that within you is a guidance system far superior to any external opinion. This is why meditation matters. It is not a ritual. It is reinforcement. Every time you meditate on truth, you reinforce the guardrails of your mind. You build a fortress around your focus. You say this space is sacred. Only divine ideas are welcome here. To guard your mind is to recognize the power of influence. You cannot soar in consciousness while entertaining low vibrations. You cannot speak words of power while listening to voices of panic. Every conversation is either planting seeds of strength or seeds of struggle. You must become a spiritual gatekeeper. Every idea must be evaluated. Is it based on truth? Does it align with my spiritual knowing? Does it serve the life I am creating? Because fear speaks often, but truth speaks with authority. And once you train your mind to recognize the voice of fear, you will no longer mistake it for caution. You will hear it and say, that is not my guide. And when fear knocks, you will answer with faith, not borrowed faith, not Sunday faith, but faith, born from guarding your mind every single day. Delight in divine law. It shapes your destiny. The blessed life is not built upon random bursts of inspiration. It is constructed upon the steady delight in divine principle. The psalmist writes, but his delight is in the law of the Lord. He does not say obligation. He does not say burden. He says delight. And that one word unlocks the secret chamber of spiritual transformation. To delight in something is to give it joyful attention. It is to return to it, not out of duty, but out of desire. When you delight in divine law, you are no longer trying to obey a rule book. You are aligning your soul with the rhythms of the universe. You are finding joy in the architecture of spiritual order. You are tuning your emotional body to the music of divine wisdom. This delight is not intellectual. It is vibrational. It is when your heart smiles at truth. It is when the word feels like food, not a formula. It is when the laws of God are no longer external commands, but internal compasses. When you begin to delight in divine law, you are not performing religion. You are activating law. You are communing with truth. The law of the Lord is not a restriction. It is an invitation. It is the pattern by which all life operates. When you delight in that pattern, you step into flow. You no longer fight the current. You move with it. The same laws that govern the stars, the seas, and the seasons begin to govern your thoughts, your speech, your results. The subconscious mind is governed by repetition and emotion. What you delight in, you emotionally bond with. What you return to daily becomes encoded in the deep places of your Rinan. When divine truth becomes your delight, it becomes your dominant vibration. And your dominant vibration becomes your reality. So many try to force change through willpower. They grit their teeth. and struggle to obey spiritual laws. But willpower is temporary. Delight is permanent. Willpower is a muscle. Delight is a magnet. You do not have to push the soul when it is already pulled by joy. Delight in divine law creates a gravitational pull around you. It attracts opportunities, clarity, insight, favor. Why? Because you are no longer resisting the truth. You are rejoicing in it. And what you rejoice in expands. Delighting in divine law also realigns your internal compass. It sharpens your discernment. You begin to intuitively know when something is out of alignment. You no longer need endless confirmation. The law becomes your inner GPS. You begin to move from a place of inner knowing rather than outer pressure. This is not about religious observance. This is about universal order. When your soul delights in divine law, your life becomes a symphony. Decisions become clearer. Relationships shift into harmony. Confusion dissolves. Because you are no longer reacting to the world, you are responding from truth. There is a difference between studying truth and delighting in it. Study alone may inform you. Delight transforms you. Delight ignites the subconscious. It brings energy to the word. It opens the inner gates to revelation. It makes the truth not just accessible but alive. When you begin to delight in divine law, you begin to see it everywhere. You notice it in the flow of nature, in the structure of time, in the seasons of your own life. You begin to speak from that place. You no longer ask for things randomly. You begin to decree according to law. This is how destiny is shaped, not through guesswork, but through delight-filled alignment with the governing principles of life. You become like a tree planted by the rivers of living water, not because you tried harder, but because you delighted deep. Meditation is the mechanism of manifestation. The psalmist continues, "And in his law doth he meditate, day and night. Herein lies the method. Here lies the practice. Here lies the secret known to all the great spiritual masters. What you meditate on, you manifest. What you repeatedly impress upon your subconscious mind with feeling and focus becomes form." Meditation is not escape. It is creation. Meditation is not the absence of thought. It is the intentional selection of thought. It is the inner crafting of reality. Meditation is the process by which divine ideas are etched into the mold of your subconscious. And once that mold is set, life begins to pour itself into it. To meditate day and night does not mean you live in a trance. It means you live in awareness. It means that truth becomes your default setting, not your emergency response. It means that when fear knocks, the answer is already programmed. When doubt whispers, the truth already speaks louder. Meditation is repetition plus emotion. Repetition builds the track. Emotion powers the train. When you meditate on divine law with delight, you are engraving the word onto the canvas of your soul. You are rehearsing your future into existence. Meditation is the womb of manifestation. Just as a seed gestates in the dark before it breaks into light, your meditations are silently shaping your visible outcomes. They are working in the unseen, aligning energies, shifting inner configurations, preparing external conditions. You do not need to figure out how the tree will grow. You need only to water the root. Meditation is watering the root. It is the silent agreement with spirit. It is the daily tuning of your frequency to the signal of divine wisdom. And once you are tuned in, manifestation is inevitable. This is not a passive waiting. It is an active planting. You are not wishing. You are creating. Every time you meditate on truth, you are reprogramming your inner software. You are deleting old fears and installing divine patterns. To meditate day and night is not exhausting. It is exhilarating. It is the realization that your mind is never empty. So you must choose what fills it. If you do not meditate on truth, the world will meditate on you. It will impress upon you its fears, its anxieties, its expectations. But when you take authorship through meditation, you reclaim your mind as sacred ground. Meditation is spiritual architecture. You are building your temple from the inside out. You are aligning your thoughts with divine blueprint. You are listening not just to silence, but to the subtle voice of God that speaks in symbols, nudges, and knowing. This process builds spiritual momentum. What begins as discipline becomes delight. What begins as practice becomes power. You begin to crave the stillness, the clarity, the vision that meditation offers. You begin to prioritize the inner world over the outer noise. Your results are a mirror of your meditations. If you are seeing chaos, go back to the root. If you are experiencing lack, revisit the blueprint. You cannot harvest peace if your dominant thoughts are of worry. You cannot manifest abundance if your meditations are saturated with fear. Life is not punishing you. It is reflecting you. When you meditate on divine law, you begin to see life through divine lens. Problems become possibilities. Delays become divine timing. Setbacks become setup because your mind is no longer interpreting life through limitation. It is receiving life through revelation. Meditation clears the fog. It removes the static from your spiritual signal. It is the sacred practice of listening deeply until truth becomes audible and inner knowing becomes action. What you plant in consciousness you harvest in life. The law is exact. The law is impartial. The law does not change based on mood, emotion, or circumstance. As you sow, so shall you reap. Not only in the field, but in the field of consciousness. Every thought is a seed. Every word is a container of creative force. Every mental image is a blueprint in the invisible, destined to manifest in the visible. The life you are living today is the harvest of yesterday's thoughts. Your consciousness is the soil, rich and fertile, open to whatever you plant. It does not judge. It does not question. It accepts what you impress upon it with feeling and repetition. When you plant thoughts of peace, peace grows. When you plant worry, worry multiplies. When you impress abundance, abundance begins to take root and bloom in your external condition. The blessed man of Psalm 1 is like a tree, but a tree does not just appear. A tree is first a seed. It is hidden, nurtured, fed, cultivated in the unseen before it reveals itself to the world. And so it is with your life. You do not manifest what you want. You manifest what you are conscious of being. You do not attract what you wish for. You attract what you are in harmony with at the subconscious level. Planting in consciousness is not a one-time event. It is a continual process. Every moment is an opportunity to choose the seed. Every word spoken in faith. Every visualization rooted in truth. Every affirmation declared with conviction is a spiritual planting, and every complaint, every negative assumption, every casual agreement with fear is also a seed. The law does not delay. It does not forget. It does not discriminate. It simply responds. It brings forth after its kind. Thoughts of lack cannot yield abundance. Seeds of fear cannot grow into peace. If the fruit of your life displeases you, the remedy is not external, it is internal. Change the seed, change the pattern of thought, uproot what no longer serves, and replant what aligns with your divine intention. Many people attempt to manipulate outer conditions without tending to their inner garden. They change jobs, move cities, alter relationships, But the same patterns repeat because the consciousness remains the same. You cannot outrun the harvest. You must return to the soil and begin anew. To consciously plant divine ideas is to cooperate with Spirit. It is to say, I understand the law, and I align with it. When you impress your subconscious with truth, beauty, and divine order, you are setting in motion the forces that govern manifestation. You may not see the result immediately, but the seed is alive. It is working below the surface. Your only task is to keep the soil clear of weeds, negative thoughts, emotional disturbances, fear-based reactions, and continue to water the seed with faith and gratitude. This is not wishful thinking. It is spiritual engineering. The same way a gardener does not dig up the seed each day to check its progress, you too must trust the process. What you impress upon your inner world will eventually take shape in your outer world. This is not personal. It is principle. You have been given dominion over your mind. You have been entrusted with the gift of imagination. You have been endowed with the authority to choose your inner focus. These are the tools of creation. These are the instruments by which heaven is made visible on earth. Use them not casually, but consciously. What you plant in consciousness, you harvest in life. This is the law. This is the rhythm. This is the path to the blessed life. The blessed life flows. It is not forced. There is a natural ease in divine alignment. The tree planted by the rivers of water does not struggle to grow. It does not force its fruit. It does not compete with the trees around it. It simply draws from the source and flourishes. The river flows. The roots receive. The fruit appears in its season. So it is with the blessed life. When you are aligned with divine law, you enter the rhythm of grace. You stop pushing, forcing, controlling. You start flowing, allowing, trusting. The blessed life is not a product of frantic effort. It is the result of spiritual positioning. When your inner atmosphere is saturated with peace, purpose, and principle, your outer experience mirrors that harmony. The reason so many feel spiritually exhausted is not because they lack energy, but because they are working against the current of truth. They are trying to make things happen instead of allowing things to unfold. They are relying on effort instead of alignment. But the divine life is not mechanical. It is organic. It grows. It moves. It breathes. It flows. The river in Psalm 1 is symbolic of divine supply. It represents the constant stream of wisdom, strength, provision, and inspiration that flows from spirit into the receptive soul. The tree does not create the water. It receives it. It is planted near the source. It is rooted where life flows. To be planted by the river is to be connected to the invisible supply. It is to live with inner assurance that all you need is already present in spiritual form. It is to trust that what is yours will come, not by stress, but by surrender, not by manipulation, but by meditation, not by pushing, but by positioning. The blessed life flows, and flow is not passivity. It is precision. It is the ability to move with divine timing. It is the wisdom to know when to act and when to wait, when to speak and when to be silent. Flow is not drifting aimlessly. It is moving with an intentional surrender. You do not force fruit. You cultivate conditions. The fruit appears because the tree is healthy, rooted, and in the right environment. Your results are not the product of manipulation. They are the outgrowth of internal alignment. When you stop striving and start flowing, life responds. The right people appear. The right doors open. The right ideas emerge. not through struggle, but through synchronicity. Flow does not mean you will not work. It means your work becomes sacred. It becomes joyful. It becomes an extension of your inner harmony, not a reaction to external pressure. You begin to live from inspiration, not desperation. You begin to operate with grace, not grind. In the flow state, time expands, energy multiplies, peace increases, because you are not wasting energy resisting what is. You are not draining yourself, trying to control every outcome. You are living in the current of divine guidance. You are trusting the process of spiritual law. You begin to see that the same river that nourishes you is carrying away what no longer serves you. The flow not only provides, it purifies. It washes away old patterns, dissolves outdated beliefs, clears stagnant energy. You become lighter, clearer, more focused, not because you fixed everything, but because you let go. This is why the Psalm says his leaf also shall not wither, because when you are in the flow, even in difficult seasons you remain nourished, you remain vibrant, you remain connected. The world may shift, but your root system holds you steady. The blessed life is not a life without challenges, but it is a life where challenges are met with inner stability. Flow does not mean life is always easy. It means your response is anchored in peace. You no longer react to storms. You move with purpose through them. You no longer fight every wave. You ride the current. This is the rhythm of spirit. This is the atmosphere of the blessed. You are no longer a victim of outer change. You are a vessel of inner constancy. You live from a deeper place. You draw from a higher source. You move not with the chaos of the world, but with the quiet power of the river that never runs dry. Prosperity is a byproduct of divine alignment. Prosperity is not something you chase. It is something you magnetize. It is the natural result of being rooted in spiritual law, just as fruit is the natural result of a healthy planted tree. When your thoughts, emotions, and intentions are in harmony with divine order, prosperity flows toward you effortlessly. You do not beg for it. You become a vessel for it. Divine alignment means your mind is clear, your heart is open, and your motives are pure. In that sacred alignment, all that you need is drawn to you, not as reward, but as response. Your prosperity does not come from struggle, but from the steady circulation of spirit through you. The rootless mind is blown by every wind. A mind not grounded in truth is like chaff in the wind, easily swayed, quickly scattered, void of stability. The rootless mind is reactive, driven by opinion, fear, and temporary emotion. It seeks direction from the outer world, not the inner source. When challenges come, it has no anchor, but when your mind is rooted in divine principle, you stand unmoved. You discern truth from illusion. You are not shaken by headlines, nor pulled by pressure. Rooted thinking is resilient thinking. It is the mark of the blessed planted, nourished, unshakable in storm. Your path is known. You're not walking blind. The blessed do not stumble through life hoping to find the way. They walk a path already known by the divine. For the Lord knoweth the way of the righteous. This is not mere poetry. It is spiritual fact. Your steps are not random. They are part of a higher coordination. When your inner world aligns with divine law, guidance is no longer a mystery. You are led from within, prompted by peace, nudged by intuition, surrounded by grace. Even when the next step isn't visible, the path is secure, because it is known in spirit before it is seen in form. You are not guessing. You are guided. Righteousness is right thinking in harmony with divine law. Righteousness is not moral superiority. It is mental clarity. It is the state of thinking in line with spiritual truth. When your thoughts are in agreement with divine law, you are righteous, not by external rules, but by internal order. You think thoughts that bless, that uplift, that harmonize with love, abundance, peace, and purpose. Right thinking produces right results, not by effort, but by love. You have just walked through the sacred gateway of Psalm 1, the divine architecture of the blessed life. You now understand that the blessed life doesn't begin with action. It begins with separation. You cannot rise while clinging to what drains you. You have seen that guarding your mind is not optional. It's spiritual survival. What you allow in eventually lives through you. You've discovered that delight, not duty, is the gateway to divine revelation. When you enjoy the law, you embody it. And meditation is not passive. It is the creative act that writes your future in the language of now. You've seen that what you plant in consciousness, you harvest in experience. You are not a servant to fate. You are the sower of destiny. You've realized that the blessed life flows, and the moment you align, everything begins to unfold in divine rhythm. You now know that prosperity is not chased. It is allowed, a byproduct of living in sync with truth, that a rootless mind is unstable, blown by emotion and fear, but a rooted mind is grounded in peace, clarity, and power. You've heard the most sacred truth of all. Your path is already known. You are guided. You are supported. You are led, not randomly, but righteously. And finally, you've seen that righteousness is not self-righteousness. It is right thinking. It is the alignment of your inner dialogue with divine intelligence. This psalm is not just to be remembered. It is to be lived. It is the foundation stone of your flourishing. It is the sacred law that turns belief into being and faith into form. This is not the end. It is the activation. If you found value in this spiritual unfolding, subscribe and join us here on Macware, where ancient truth becomes modern power, and your spirit remembers its original strength.